Hello, welcome back for another edition of Interesting Spanish Things. This is just kind of my personal journal of things that I have found interesting in Spanish lately. Obviously not necessarily things that I learned or whatever. So the first one is a phrase that I just absolutely love. I don't usually hear it too much in real life, but definitely in books and stuff like that. And I think if someone's getting really creative in real life, maybe, and that is con cara de pocos amigos. There are other similar phrases that have different things than pocos amigos, pero it just means it would be someone was coming into the room or walking down the hallway or whatever, and it's literally with a face of few friends, but it's not exactly like resting bitch face, but it's like a face that wouldn't make many friends, I just think it's so funny. I mean, very harsh, but very funny at the same time. This one I think is very Spain specific, if I'm not mistaken, but that is un pelín. It's like un poco, and more common almost, I would say here, and then very little, and I often hear it in kind of a comical sense, and I just think it's very cute. I can't say it cute, but Spanish people can. And this one is ahora, but in the sense of that now in Spanish doesn't actually mean now, and there's been a lot of conversation about this, about ahorita, which is not super common here, but also literally just ahora doesn't mean the same thing. Like, people will say hasta ahora or ahora vuelvo, see you now, or I'll be back now, but obviously they don't literally mean that. I have actually heard people say it in English, not realizing that we don't say that in English, of now, see you now, or whatever, and obviously that's not an expression in English, which I don't blame them at all for not knowing that, obviously, but I just think it's funny that there's this other use of now to mean soon that we absolutely don't have, because people will just say ahora, which, I think is endearing, but also funny. Then another one that's a little bit more, structural rather than a specific word, even though it is a specific word, is that instead of using either or, obviously they wouldn't use either or, but the either or of Spanish, just using o for both. O tengo que ir al supermercado hoy, o voy a ir mañana por la mañana. You just say or before both phrases. Oh, this one is specifically Andalusian, 100%, and it is me da coraje. This phrase isn't necessarily Andalusian, I guess, because in standard Spanish this would mean it gives me courage, or it makes me courageous, but in Andalusia this means it makes me annoyed. So if you say something me da coraje, it's I would say annoyed. I don't think it's angry, enraged kind of thing, because the other one that is common is me da rabia. Definitely not like that, but me da coraje. And I just think, it's an interesting phrase, and I think it's funny because I think it does sound a little bit more serious, because it sounds like it's giving you courage to fight someone or something. That's not it. But me da coraje. Okay, so no and no in Spanish are the same thing, but, and this is something that I think I hear a lot more because I work in a school, que no or que sí, but I hear que no a lot more. We don't have anything in English that gives quite the same annoyed impact as que no. If you're talking to a kid and they're, I think it's considered quite not strong, but you wouldn't say this to your boss or anything, or your parent, hopefully, probably not. If there's a student, just no, but can't we do this, blah 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 blah, the teacher might be que no, and I mean the students do it to each other all the time, but sometimes I just want to say it in English, because there's just nothing with this flavor. We would probably just keep saying I said no, which I think is probably what this came from, he dicho que no, I imagine. But yeah, something about the que no. Another one that I just love the sound of is tal cual. The same as, or just as, or something like that. So like you could say that something fits tal cual, or that they repeated something tal cual that it was before or whatever. But something about, and I feel like people do this, you know, the hand motion with it a lot too, but like tal cual, it's just a very satisfying phrase. I don't know, there's no deeper meaning. Okay, this one is an actual word that I just really like the word, and it is despeinarse. And the very common use of this is to say that someone did something sin despeinarse. Okay, peinarse is like brush your hair, you know, get arreglado, comb. I might be comb your hair technically. Despeinarse is like your hair being unkempt, whatever you want to call it. Must. So to say that you did something sin despeinarse. I don't normally struggle with saying this word, but now that I've said it like 5 times in a row, despeinarse. Okay, despeinarse. I think in English the most relevant phrase would be without breaking a sweat, to do something without breaking a sweat, but that doesn't have the same visual of like someone doing something and like not even having a hair out of place. Okay, then we have I blank, e blank. And this is like a structure that's just used in a way that we don't do this in English either, of like, so a context, I've heard this a lot, but a context that I heard it in very recently was people talking about being in group chats. And they were like, oh, you know, I hate being in group chats, blah, blah, blah. And then someone was like, bueno, hay grupos y grupos. And that's like so common to say things like that. Like, we would say, I think, depends on the group. But like, again, that's just less like, it's less of an interesting way. Like, hay grupos y grupos. Depends on, like, there's different types of group chats or whatever. Like, we're just cutting to the chase here. Hay grupos y grupos. And then the last one is just something that I've noticed, that I have noticed this a lot of times before in different contexts, but the way that we refer to ourselves, or even to other people, but primarily to ourselves, in Spanish is yo. You know, obviously. Didn't ever think a thing about it until I thought about the fact that in English, it's me. We don't normally just go around, you know, people would kind of think it was funny if you referred to yourself as I all the time. Like, I, like, it sounds very, like, formal. But yeah, we would always say, like, me. And they will always say, yo. I've never heard any Spanish speaker refer to themselves as me. For roll call and that sort of thing, in Spanish, they answer with yo. And so one of my teachers asked how we would do it in English. And I don't know how it is in other English-speaking countries. I said, from my experience in the US, it's usually here, or if you're more fancy, present. But even if we were going to say, like, just a me, like, we would say me. We would not say I. Anyway, then same thing, but slightly different with soy yo. Like, if you are talking on the phone and you're like, oh, hey, so-and-so, soy yo, blah, 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 blah. Like, in English, it's me. But you would never say es yo. Equally, you wouldn't say I am. When you answer the phone, like, this just, like, breaks my brain. And same with if you send a meme or something and you're like, it's me, or it's you even, they would say eres tú or soy yo. But we would never say you are or I am. Like, I don't know why this is so entertaining to me, but thinking about the ways that this is different is like, I'll never stop thinking about this now. So anyway, leave your language quirks or interesting things that you have discovered recently in the comments if you would like to, and I will see you in the next video.